Welcome to The Explainer. Our source materials are highlighting a really significant cultural shift right now. More and more young people, Gen Z specifically, are turning to Islam. So today we're going to dive into why that might be happening and what it tells us about a generation looking for answers in a pretty chaotic world.
Okay, let's kick things off with a number that might surprise you. According to what we've seen, about 25,000 people convert to Islam in the United States every single year. Just to put that in perspective, that's like a whole new town's worth of people annually. But who are they?
And here is where it gets really interesting. Of those thousands of new converts in the US, almost 3/4, a full 75%, are from Gen Z. This tells us we're not just looking at a small trend. This is something being driven by young people.
And this isn't just an American thing, not at all. As our sources show, this pattern is popping up all over the globe. In at least 14 countries, you can see a few examples like Great Britain and Sweden right here, Gen Z identifies as Muslim at a much, much higher rate than older generations. So, what is going on here? To really get the why behind those numbers, our sources suggest we need to look past the data and kind of step into the inner world of this generation. And that story seems to start with this overwhelming feeling of just being lost in the modern world.
I mean, just look at these words: lonely, anxious, burnt out. They come up over and over again in the material we reviewed. They paint a picture of a generation that might look happy in their selfies, but is often feeling really sad and disconnected behind the screen. There's this feeling of being like a one-tick WhatsApp message, sent out but not really seen, surrounded by people but still feeling completely alone. So you can imagine, this kind of internal struggle leads to this constant, relentless search for relief. Our sources talk about young people trying basically everything to feel better. Meditation apps, dopamine detoxes, minimalism, you name it. But what they often find is that these are just temporary fixes, and they're still left with this deep craving for something more, something that actually lasts. And this is where that search for relief starts to evolve into something much deeper, a search for real purpose and principle. Let's get into how, according to our sources, Islam is presenting itself as a compelling alternative.
So, what our sources point to is Islam offering a really clear answer to one of life's biggest questions: what is my purpose? It seems to shift the entire goal of life away from chasing likes, trends, and what other people think of you, to a life that's centered on your own conviction and a direct accountability to God.
This quote from one of our sources just says it all, doesn't it? It's from a young woman whose father offered her a brand new car if she just stopped wearing her hijab. Her response really gets to the core of this whole perspective shift. How can I trade my afterlife for a car? It totally reframes the choice. It's not about convenience or what you can get right now. It's about eternal significance versus something temporary. It's described as a system that actually gives you a kind of freedom from the anxiety of keeping up with brands, with appearances, with the constant pressure to perform for everyone online. It's a path built on daily practices that build self-discipline and recenter your life around a higher purpose. And that, in turn, is said to bring this incredible sense of inner peace. Okay, so beyond that personal search for purpose, there's another really powerful element drawing in this very socially conscious generation. And that's what our sources describe as Islam's clear, unwavering stance on justice and basic human equality. This core teaching, which our sources attribute to the Prophet Muhammad, speaks so directly to the conversations we're having today about race and inequality. For a generation that is so passionate about taking apart systemic prejudice, a principle of radical equality like this one, well, it's incredibly resonant. And the thing is, this isn't just some nice idea on paper. Our sources describe how this principle is actually put into practice every single day. During prayer, a janitor and a millionaire, a servant and a professor, they literally stand side by side, and all of that worldly status just gets erased before God. And this is so important, right? Young people are seeing these powerful examples of faith in action. They see historical figures like Muhammad Ali, and even contemporary ones like the MMA champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, people who sacrificed huge amounts of fame and money for what they believed in. That provides a really strong moral compass in a world that can feel pretty directionless. All right, finally, let's talk about something I think we can all relate to, especially in this age of digital isolation. Our sources consistently point to the deep appeal of genuine, selfless human connection that the faith offers.
You can really see the contrast here, can't you? On one side, you've got that modern feeling of loneliness, and on the other, a community that's built on this idea of brotherhood and sisterhood, where the whole focus shifts from me to us, and where people are actually encouraged to put others before themselves, even when they're in need.
Stories like this one from our sources really drive the point home. They show a community built on these acts of selfless kindness. Helping another person isn't about getting likes or feeling good about yourself. It's presented as a direct act of worship, something you do purely for the sake of God. So, when you start to tie all of these threads together, this deep search for purpose, this call for real justice, and this need for a strong community, you start to see this whole comprehensive narrative emerge. And it's one that seems to be really compelling for a generation that's actively searching for answers.
So if we boil it all down, what our sources seem to be saying is that for many in Gen Z, Islam isn't just a set of beliefs you adopt. It's a full framework for how to live, and one that directly addresses their deepest anxieties about meaninglessness, injustice, and isolation. And, importantly, our sources note it's a faith that actually encourages you to ask questions, to think critically, not to just blindly believe, which really appeals to a generation that values authenticity.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to mull over. Is what we're seeing here just about young people adopting a new faith? Or, as our sources suggest, are they actually discovering a blueprint for a totally different way to live? A life with more meaning, more justice, and more real human connection in this modern world?
The question isn't why Gen Z is turning to Islam, it's why the rest of us aren't asking the same questions. Faith isn't fading, it's awakening. And Gen Z might just be leading the way.